Ngannou versus Miocic. Oh, well, definitely he was more nervous, but hello guys, my name is Tina and today we're gonna analyze fight between Francis Ngannou and Miocic. Stipe Miocic is his name, and so let's basically dive right into this, and we're gonna start from the point that we couldn't see, and we obviously don't know much about it, but we are going to talk about, well, who was more nervous and who had more to lose. This is a very difficult topic at this particular case, simply because both of people, I personally believe that both of them had a lot to lose. It really depends on the mindset, right? Well, Stipe Miocic is this great athlete, right? He is arguably the greatest of all time heavyweight champion. At the same time, he's very down-to-earth guy, and I think he already knew that if this is gonna come, like all athletes see other athletes fight and they see other athletes lose, and how basically fast people, I don't know, UFC and media, social media, all types of media, how fast people are losing interest in you if you lose the fight, right? And that's gonna hit very hard, and almost doesn't matter how old you are, how strong your frame is, it's still gonna hit you mentally very hard. I don't know if you guys know, but there used to be this fighter, Fedor Emelianenko. I think he used to fight in UFC, but he was in this martial arts community. He used to be one of the most favorite fighters of Mike Tyson. Actually, he was really great. He was quote unquote emperor, and almost relatively recently he actually did admit that it was so hard seeing so many close people leaving him, his team, simply because he wasn't winning anymore. And he is the person who has very strong frame. He is very religious. He is very grounded guy, one of the most humble guys right out there who used to ever fight, right? But he did admit to struggling a lot, because when you're a loser, obviously Stipe Miocic is not at the place where Fedor Emelianenko necessarily is, but it's still like, as much as you're trying to prepare yourself for this moment where you are basically now this like greatest of all the time emperor, whatever you are, right? Like this is gonna hit hard, and obviously Stipe Miocic did earn a lot of money. He has this family, great family. He's like an older dude, so it's obviously easier, arguably, more probably it is easier for you to deal with the fame and all the success when you are older. And yeah, but it's still it's still a lot of pressure. I believe it's very hard to deal with the pressure. But let's analyze Francis Ngannou for a second. I think just looking from him and him coming out, going into the octagon, I thought it looked like, to me, he was definitely more nervous, like body language wise. When he was walking out, if you guys can see, probably you guys can see on the screen right now, he was visibly more nervous, just his posture, especially before he walked outside. But once he walked out of the corridor where people kind of could have seen him, were able to see him, his posture became a little more dominant. But before that, he even had taken a couple breaths out of his mouth a little bit, and his posture was a little bit like down. So he definitely seemed more nervous. Why is that? Well, obviously you don't get that many chances to get the belt, right? So, and he had gone through so much. Honestly, as a person from Western Europe, I am someone who is obviously you would assume it was gonna cheer for Stipe Miocic, but like honestly, after hearing Francis Ngannou's story, it is so hard to not to cheer for that guy, right? And he has he has had this very long road. He had his opportunities that he unfortunately or fortunately wasn't able to translate into the result, and I'm talking about his fight against Stipe Miocic in 2018, right? So it was a really long road, and he had this dream, and it's pressure. It's definitely pressure, and it is possible that this could have been potentially his last opportunity to win this belt, to get this belt. So obviously it's basically what I'm trying to say here. It's not about objective type of pressure, it's how both athletes perceived it. And in my opinion, from body language, and obviously some people, and especially athletes like that, they are able to hide it well. But honestly, at the same time, when you are in this octagon and you get so-called octagon jitters, it is so much harder to basically hide it, because your whole body is betraying you and showing people how you really feel about what's happening. And I definitely saw Francis Ngannou just breathing harder and moving like much less confident than Stipe Miocic. If we look at the way Stipe Miocic went out and the way he behaved, his posture and stuff, right? We can definitely see that his body language is way more confident. Let's talk about a little bit more objective stuff, and another thing that is, I believe, very important even in terms of psychology and psychologically. It is so obvious that Stipe Miocic looks way smaller than Francis Ngannou, which is very, very, it could be very big psychological advantage, especially in this type of sports where you get in contact, like the indirect contact, like right, like not tennis or I don't know, sports where you don't touch other people. So Miocic is way smaller dude. He did do some low kicks, and I wanna warn all of you, I'm not that great at understanding the techniques and stuff, but it definitely seems that Miocic's low kicks weren't as powerful as Francis Ngannou low kicks, and this difference basically in their size is, I think it really did play a huge role. It did play a huge role. And so now, if we look at the beginning of the fight, we see that Miocic his footwork is great. Well, this is actually something that tennis players are using a lot before the fight. I wanted to say the fight, but before matches, tennis players are doing the same footwork that Miocic is doing here, right? Like Rafael Nadal even sometimes sprints from the net to the back, to the baseline, and that really takes out this like bad nerves, bad stress out of your system. So I see what Miocic is doing. He's very active. He is like trying to get that cortisol, bad quote unquote bad cortisol out of his system, and you know, just basically stay more active. And we see Francis Ngannou, and I don't know if that's how he always fights, but he is very patient in comparison with his other fights. But his footwork is, I don't know, to me it just seems like Francis Ngannou did subjectively had more to lose. He was more nervous, but he was a bigger guy and he was very motivated, and I assume more prepared than Stipe Miocic. But in terms of psychology, another thing that I want to say, it is totally okay to be nervous. In fact, it's sometimes in some cases, it is great to be nervous, right? There is actually, in psychology, there is this curve that is going on, right? And so there is like this optimum amount of motivation and nervousness that you are supposed to have, right? And if you go above it, like if you are gonna be more motivated than the task intends to be, then it is basically detrimental to your game, right? And if it's less than it was supposed to be, if it's somewhere, let's say here, then it's also like not good. So it's fine if you're even a little bit more nervous or a little bit more motivated, and especially in the octagon, you are most probably going to be more nervous than you are supposed to be, especially in the first round when it's like very new, and you sometimes your task positive network in your brain is sometimes overwhelmed by default mode network, which is basically where your negative talk and mind is located in your brain. And all the stuff that you are trying, that you don't need in the octagon, right? Obviously. And from this, basically from this fight, we can definitely see that it is totally fine to be nervous. It is totally fine to have octagon jitters as long as your task positive network is strong enough to take control over these negative thoughts, over these, or over the feeling of nervousness, right? Because cortisol, if we're talking about hormones here, right? There has been research, and I've said that multiple times in my videos, right? If we're talking about hormones, there has been multiple research showing that even if your cortisol level is high, but you believe that that cortisol level is there to help you, is basically beneficial for you and good for you, your body releases this other hormone called DHEA, which basically neutralizes negative effects of cortisol. So you are basically good to go, and the way you do that, the way you make your body produce this DHEA hormone, is just by believing that cortisol is good for you, that stress is good for you, and that it's gonna be basically fine. So if you have noticed, what I'm trying to say here is that our body is very complicated. There is a lot of, and psychology and mindset, it's not just like this one thing, right? And we are changing day to day, we're changing, and we need to basically, something that worked for us yesterday is not necessarily working for us today. So, in conclusion, I want to say that I see that Francis Ngannou was more nervous. He was a bigger guy, but he was strong enough mentally to deal with his nervousness and be a more dominant guy in this fight. And the way I believe, if we look at his background, if we look at where he has got, what he has gone through, we definitely see that since the beginning, since his childhood, he worked on this task positive network that is responsible for for focusing attention, for fighting those bad thoughts, right? Ever since the childhood, he worked really, really hard physically, which has helped him to prepare for this type of career, obviously. And it takes so much willpower to even work the way he did work. And yeah, so it's totally fine if you're nervous. There are a lot of ways you can combat that feeling, and you can basically not necessarily get rid of that feeling of nervousness, octagon jitters, or whatever you are. Maybe you are going to the meeting that you feel very anxious about, or something in your personal life. It could be even date. There are multiple ways that you can train your prefrontal cortex. There are multiple ways that your cognitive belief could affect even your hormones. And obviously there needs to be this mindset, very humble mindset, especially if you're doing something as crazy and as extreme as MMA, UFC. Well, you have to be humble and you have to be prepared for success. Which is weird, right? Why would you want to prepare yourself for success? But it is very, very necessary to have these blinders on. And definitely, Stipe Miocic was prepared for his success. He did have his blinders, and that's one of the reasons that I believe why he kept his job as a firefighter. Simply because this job, as a firefighter job, did keep him grounded, it kept him sane, it kept him, it helped him to keep these blinders on. So much to learn from this, guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys think everything I said is right? If you guys think that something that I have said is wrong, please comment in the section down below, or if you thought that everything I've said is correct and the right way. Also, another thing that I totally forgot to mention here is that, yeah, we see like first round, both of them are almost from the beginning breathing out of their mouth. So that's something that tennis players, tennis and fighting and boxing are so similar in terms of psychologies, and a lot of tennis players also breathe out of their mouth at the beginning of the game, simply because they are so nervous. Obviously you do have a warm-up, but not to the point where you start the fight and you breathe out of your mouth. So that's very indicative of both of them being nervous. But as I've already said, there are so many ways that you can prepare your brain, your hormones, your body to deal with that stress, to deal with this cortisol, to deal with cortisol and not let it overwhelm you, and not for your body to work against you, but work for you. So if you want to learn more about how to deal with stress, how to deal with octagon jitters, or just everyday stress in general, distress in general, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, click like button, dislike button, comment in the section down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Yeah, go to my channel and watch my other videos, because they are even better than this one. I promise.